Max has come to us via Devipuram, via Ukraine, and he has, how to say, integrated himself very nicely into our family, our Guru Parampara, and has a very unique story that I'm sure will unfold over the next several days. So today I will just tell you about I'll just introduce how our Guru Parampara book, our Navaratri Malar, came about. So this book, every year Ayya does a Navaratri Malar, we all know that. And this year when Max came to visit, just 2 days prior to him leaving for Canada, on I think around August 6th or so, Ayya asked him to write this year's Malar on Guru Parampara. He told Max, Devi has given the theme for this year. It's the Guru Parampara, Navaratri starting on September 26th, happens to be Guruji's birthday. And so our theme this year will be Parampara, and I want you to write the Malar. So August 6th, right? Okay. Today is September 26th. Okay. So 5-6 weeks later, 534 pages later, here's the Malar. So a little bit about Max. Max tells me 5 years ago he didn't even know what chakras were. Due to circumstances, the universe, she has her way, right? Through work, he ends up going to a yoga class, meets Guruji's disciple, a lady by the name of Kamala, who, fast forward a couple of weeks or so, initiates him into Sri Vidya, and he starts, once you get to know Max, you'll know, he starts researching and digging and starts asking questions, and very soon is looking for answers outside of the scope of where he was. And he soon finds Devipuram online, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And then and goes to Devipuram for one of their the introductory courses, which is like 2 weeks long. Yeah. And then gets even more hooked. Guruji's now already passed, okay? So he's never met Guruji. But somehow or another, Guruji has been guiding him along the way via dreams or signs, and we all have experienced these sort of things. And Max, trusting his intuition, has been diving deeper and deeper into the Vidya. And where's Adam? Did he leave? So, okay, so digging deeper into Mahaganapati, he does a little bit more research, really deep research, finds Adam online, and they become very, very close friends. They meet Ramesh Kutikad, fast forward a couple more, I don't know, months, years maybe, couple of years, and months, okay, and they go and present their work to Ramesh Anna, who meets with them for over a course of a month, going over details about Mahaganapati. And from there, they're on their way, well, they went to India to go to Assam, to Kamakhya. But they were going to stop at Devipuram on the way. The day they land in Devipuram, lockdown. Yeah, so instead of going to Assam to Kamakhya, they went to Devipuram to Kamakhya. And Max ends up staying there for 22 months. Adam and his wife left after 6 months, so Max was pretty much alone there with nothing else to do other than research and go into Guruji's notes and talks and tapes and all of those things. And he helps the sisters there and Amma with the courses, develop all of the courses. And if you've seen any of his work, which a lot of you have, it's pretty deep and in-depth stuff. So, and in the meantime, Shilama introduced me to Max, and then because he needed to ask Aya questions, so I was the go-between, and we have been exchanging. They have been exchanging things, Max's thoughts, Max's musings, lots of pattadis, corrections here and there with Aya. So on his bucket, so he is from Ukraine, and we all know what's happening in Ukraine. When he had to leave India, he went back to Ukraine, and 2 months later, he had a really strong suspicion he needs to leave. He didn't know what to do. I believe he asked his parents, his family and his friends and all, come on, I think we should go. This sounds serious. And he says, it's always an imminent threat with Russia. So they're like, no, this is nothing. But something was telling him no. So he asks, what does he do? He asks the guru. So he starts doing he asked Guruji. And in a dream, Guruji came and took him out of Ukraine. And you can ask him that story, because that's a very good story. And immediately he knew, I have to leave. So within the next day or two, he leaves Ukraine, and I believe 2 days later, Russia invades. So he is is completely guided by Guruji in almost every aspect. And it took him a couple of months, 2 months to get here, because he wanted to meet Aya in person. And he's on his way to Canada. He's transitioning to Canada, and he'll be with Ahalya and Sundarana until he can settle down. So that's Max's story in a nutshell. But please get to know him. It's pretty personable when he's not working. But I want this book. So it took about 5 weeks, I think, from start to finish. Many late hours. We were very blessed to have gotten to know our Guru Parampara. We were so let's take Kalyananda Tirtha, right? We were so happy and content with the one photo we had of him. We were blissful. We didn't know that there's a whole nother family like us for each of our gurus. So Prakashananda, Kalyananda Tirtha, all of them have their own set of disciples other than Guruji. We didn't know. And we did ask, I think he and I on our own, and then, when we would talk or discuss, we'd be like, we should just ask for help. And we did. And boy, did we get it. And it's still coming. We met Kalyananda Tirtha's grandson, who actually looks very much eerily like him. We've met Swaprakashananda's grandson also. They have, and other disciples who have been incredibly generous with us, and you'll see their stories and their interactions with their gurus in the book. So definitely read those. And we've had many late interviews, because across the globe and things like that, from people in India, people in California, and the like. So, and people have actually come here, and we didn't know that they were disciples of our Guru Parampara, in the Guru Parampara. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Max take over, and he's going to read the introduction to the book. But I highly recommend you go introduce yourself to Max and ask him some stories, because he's got some doozies.
Thank you. All right. Let's see how it looks. Thank you, Sarah, for a very kind introduction. And thank you to Aya for this wonderful opportunity to read the foreword. I also would like to thank all of you, this temple and Aya and the family, for their hospitality, for their kindness. I was talking to my mom. My mom's birthday is actually today. She has the same birthday as Guruji, so she told me to tell all of you hi, and also specifically to Aya, and for taking good care of me. But I would like to read the foreword by Aya in the smaller, after which I'll hand it over to Shriji, who will read some additional stories. This year's Navaratri falls on the 26th of September, which coincides with the birthday of my guru, Sri Amritanandana Saraswati. What makes it even more special is that per Devi's instructions, the theme of this year's Malar is to be dedicated to our Guru Parampara. Guru plays an indispensable role in our tradition. Guru Gita tells us Gu is darkness, Ru is the remover. So the one who removes darkness, he is called a Guru. Even as a blind man has no knowledge of forms, so one cannot get the knowledge of the reality even in crores of creation cycles except through the initiation by the Guru. The form of the Guru is the root of meditation. The feet of the Guru are the root of worship. The teaching of the Guru is the root of all mantras. The grace of the Guru is the root of salvation. When Devi decides it's time to open our souls and minds to her endless grace, she projects herself as the Guru to her waiting devotees. By transmitting the mantra Virya, which is vitality of the mantra, to the disciple, the Guru gives away part of his tapas and takes on the disciple's karmic burden. If the Shishya nurtures the seed of the mantra within himself and lives a life in perfect harmony with the spirit of the mantra, then surely he will reach the shore of liberation. Such is her grace, such is her promise. Ramesh Kutikad, Apanantanatha, in his musings on Parampara, which you will find later in this Malar, has rightfully pointed that the lineages of gurus are like the lines of the fisherman's net, which go back to one guru, who is Lord Shiva. Each link in this net is important. Each guru is different and unique in their own way. Each is the lifeline connecting us to the source of the divine grace. Each made an important contribution to this world and thus should be acknowledged. In Sri Vidya, one is supposed to know one's lineage for at least up to 7 generations. Without knowing our parampara, the mantras you recite will not have the same efficacy because the full grace is not there. That's what I've been told. So to know one's Guru Parampara and to know who they are is very important because without them there is no Vidya. May the entire lineage of Gurus shower their grace and the blessings on all the seekers that they may attain liberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. So with that, we would like to formally release this year's Navaratri Malar. So we are going to be making the electronic version of this, the digital version of this, available online immediately. So it will be on our bookstore, available for download. There will also be a collector's edition, a print edition that is going to be available soon. So we will make it possible for you to register your interest. If you are interested in purchasing that, we will send out a form or have a product by which you can register your interest. So please join me in congratulating Max and Saru also, who helped so much in putting this Malar together. A small token of the temple's gratitude and affection. Max, if you'd please come up. Uncle, Natarajan uncle, Vang uncle. This is truly a lifetime's worth of work that Max has accomplished in 5 or 6 short weeks. And it is a great blessing for all of us to know more about our Guru Parampara. Saru Akka, if you'd please come up. Not Akka to me though, but yes. Saru has been Max's collaborator through this whole exercise, and I'm sure this would not have been possible without her support. Thank you, Saru. Okay. So the plan for Navaratri is every evening we will be covering the story of one of our gurus, and I think Ayya will be doing the honors starting tomorrow, but today he has assigned me that responsibility because it is his own story. So I will get started. Thank you. On August 10th, 1943, Navaratnam Vijayaharan, affectionately known as Haranayya, was born to Srimati Kamalambal and Sri Navaratnam in Bandaravela, Sri Lanka. You'll have to help with some of the pronunciations, Ayya. Known for its lush landscapes and fertile soil, the family called Bandaravela their home for 12 years. Ayya fondly recalls his childhood spent in hill country as being surrounded by fruit trees hanging from branches and sampling their bounty to his heart's content. Growing up as the youngest of 9 children, 4 girls and 5 boys, Ayya was very close to his mother. She was his world. Having lost his father at the tender age of 12, his formative years were heavily influenced by her. She would teach him Devarams, devotional Tamil hymns sung in praise of Shiva, and tell him mythological stories while feeding him or while doing housework and when he was dozing off to sleep. So this is an excerpt from The Goddess Lives in Upstate New York, the book. According to Ayya, his mother strictly enforced her children's religious observances for as long as she was able. An unbending rule, as he describes it, was that all her children pray with her in the family shrine room at 6 every evening, or else, and you had to sing Tevaram or a hymn or something like that. This is in Ayya's words. If you came out of the shrine room without vibhuti smeared on your forehead, Mom would whack you. She would say, "What is this?" So you had to do it. There was no question. At that time, she was still trying to instill discipline. You know, that habit-forming discipline. As a young boy, Ayya would dutifully accompany his mother on her visits to the local temple, although he admits his primary attraction was not to the resident deity, but to the sweet prasadam distributed by the priests. Furthermore, even as a little boy, he nagged his mother about the aspects of temple worship he considered bothersome. The temple was just about 50 yards from my house, from where I was born, and my mother would hold me by the hand and take me to the temple. And I used to go and walk around with her and do all the things she was doing, like children do. And then I would ask her, "Amma, why is there a priest inside here?" because you know how the Hindu temples are over here. You are perhaps 25-30 yards away from the sanctum. You can't go anywhere near the deity. So I used to say, you always tell me that God is everywhere. Do you mean to tell me that He won't listen to me if I say things to Him? Why does He, the pujari, have to be there? And Amma would, in the old tradition, do archanas in the temple, and she would tell the priest what he should pray. Why is she telling him? Why can't she tell God directly? So I used to ask this kind of thing, and she used to tell me, this is the way it has been done for thousands of years. And I would say, that's not right. If you say that God is everywhere and knows everything, that means He must know what I am thinking. Why do I need somebody else to interpret? Does God speak a different language? Although Ayya may have besieged his mother with questions when he was little, he did not protest his trips to the temple until he was a teenager. Ayya continues, at that time, that earlier time, I took things for granted. Whatever my mum told me was like God's word. She was such a nice woman. Anyway, by the time I reached 13, 14 years old, I lost interest in all that nonsense. I was more interested in cricket and the things going on around me. Every day she would pray, I would tell her, bring God here. Every day that she would pray, I would tell her, bring God here, let me ask Him a few questions. But I guess the training, once it has been given to you, basic as it was with my mum, it never dies. The early years. Soon, Ayya entered Little Flowers Girls' Convent and was taught early on by his first two teachers, Dayalamani teacher and his eldest sister, Srimati Sulochana Devi Param Jyoti. Dayalamani teacher, also known to us as Kovil Ammamma, taught Ayya from the first to the third grade. His foundation in Tamil was laid during this time. Sulochana Akka was his teacher in the fourth and fifth grades, and Ayya jokingly says that she was tough as nails. He also gives her the main credit for his command of both English and Tamil. Ayya recalls during school holidays, Sulochana Akka would bring back a stack of books and say, you have to finish these books during your holidays. Every evening we will discuss these and you can tell me what you read that day. And even though sometimes it felt like torture to him, this type of homework was the reason for him developing the ability to easily recall facts he previously read. Sulochana Akka also instilled in him a lifelong love of reading and thirst for knowledge. To this day, he is well versed in current world affairs. He keeps up to date on politics and reads voraciously on topics like Abhirami and Dadi, Puranas, Agama Shastras, sculpture and iconography, to the science of water memory and genetic coding, to name a few. I think we are all very, very familiar with this. At any given time, you will find him sitting in his favorite chair, surrounded by books and printouts. Even his large coffee table is stacked high with books that are within reach to help him with research for the upcoming week's online class. He is always in a place of learning. Ayya transitioned from Little Flowers Girls' Convent to St. Joseph's Boys' School in the 7th grade, to Colombo Hindu College, 8th and 9th grades, and then to Jaffna College, 9th grade through high school. Ayya initially wanted to be a veterinarian, but his uncle, who took him under his wing, persuaded him to enter the world of architecture, much to Ayya's dismay. As such, Ayya proceeded to study architecture at the University of Ceylon in Colombo. By 1964, now in his 20s, Ayya was singing in nightclubs, and writing about the human right atrocities taking place in Sri Lanka at the same time. By all accounts, his traditional upbringing was seemingly a distant memory. His mother worried about him, his choice of music, and his choice of friends. When she challenged him on his preference for singing film songs rather than devotional hymns, he would tout his Marxist philosophy, insisting that she first bring God to sit in front of him so he could get answers about the world's injustices. Then he would sing his praises. The turning point. Around this time, Ayya became the associate editor of his college's magazine called Young Idea. This is when the glamour of singing in nightclubs began fading and he started composing poetry. One evening, he rode his bike to a nearby village called Arali, in search of a quiet spot to write. He found a secluded paddy field about a quarter of a mile from an old Devi temple and quickly lost himself in his compositions. As dusk descended, he happened to look up from his notepad in the direction of the temple and saw a small group of people inside preparing for an evening festival. From where he sat, he could also see the murti of the goddess, tall as a full-grown woman, standing in all her festival finery. Without thinking, Ayya walked his bike over to the temple and entered. As a matter of childhood reflex, he started walking clockwise around the sanctum in the temple's inner courtyard. As he reached the back of the sanctum, it suddenly struck him that this temple had a reputation for being powerful and dangerous. Rumor had it that young people between the ages of 17 and 24 never set foot in it after dusk. Suddenly, bursting with fear, he scrambled towards the main entrance, surprised to find an untouchable woman with a basket on her head standing near the ceremonial flagstaff. She asked him in colloquial Tamil, "Why are you afraid and where are you running?" Still intent upon getting out of the temple, Ayya managed to rumble a quick, nonsensical response and flee. As he reached his bicycle parked a few yards from the temple, he saw the temple pujari walking towards him from across the road, holding a tray of prasadam. Ayya hurriedly told him about his unusual encounter in the temple, to which the priest responded with surprise, "You have seen her too?" He then nudged Ayya and said, "Come, let's go in and see." Inside the temple, the woman was nowhere to be found. Left where she had been standing, however, were two flat mounds of sacred ash, vibhuti, in the shape of footprints. As the priest carefully covered the spot with a shawl, meaning to keep the ash for himself and his temple, Ayya pleaded for some of the vibhuti to take home, reasoning that he was the one who saw her after all. When the priest finally relented, Ayya claimed the left footprint. The priest swept the ash onto a piece of paper, folded it up, and inserted it into Ayya's shirt pocket. During his ride home, Ayya felt himself being transformed, distanced from the person he was before the vision. Once home, he recounted the story to his mother and, overcome by his tremendous love for her, let his tears flow. His amma then applied the ash on his forehead. After that, Ayya spent most of his spare time in the family's puja room, meditating and loudly singing devotional songs. Because this was an interim period in his life, while he was waiting to hear the results of his college entrance exams, Ayya had plenty of time to dive fully into a new mode of being. He promptly stopped singing in nightclubs. He no longer joined his friends to play cricket. and he quickly gained a reputation for devotional singing at nearby temples. This 180-degree shift in behavior understandably alarmed his mother. She worried that at this rate, her son would soon become a sannyasi, a renunciate, lost forever to ascetic wanderings. When Ayya did not heed her pleas to lighten up on his devotions, she wrote to his oldest sister and brother who had moved away and asked them to come talk sense into their brother. When they arrived with their litany of concerns, Ayya managed to stand his ground. He argued that all his life the family had preached the importance of devotion and godly behavior, and now that he was following their advice, how could they ask him to stop? When his mother nonetheless continued to fret about his devotional excesses, Ayya decided the only way to stop her pestering would be to obtain mantra diksha or initiation from a guru. He would thus be bound to continue his practice, and he figured his mother would have to leave him alone. In 1964, Amma was studying in Ramanathan College, where she had to take the college exams and needed a place to stay during that time. Because the hostel was not accommodating for vegetarians, Amma's friend Jnanambika introduced her to Ayya's mother Kamalamba, who took Amma in as a boarder. During their conversations, Ayya learned from Amma about Mataji, from whom she received Mantra Diksha in 1962. Seeking some guidance on who he should ask about getting Mantra Diksha, Ayya writes to two well-known individuals residing nearby. One was Talangama Ramachandran, editor of the Religious Digest magazine. Ayya wrote to him and asked who he should approach for a mantra. I don't want to go to a temple and ask the priest. You would have to pay 150 rupees and he will tell you something and it will be like a business transaction, Ayya mentioned in his letter. The second person, from a town called Navalapitiya, was a gentleman named Atmajoti Muttaya. Ayya did not know him but wrote to him anyway. Both Talangama Ramachandran and Atmajoti Muttaya told Ayya to go see Shiva Sachidananda Mataji, who was, as they noted, a powerhouse. Soon afterwards, Ayya made the 4-hour bus journey to Mataji's ashram and asked her for Mantra Diksha. She kept looking at him for the next hour or so, sizing him up, and finally said, "Come tomorrow." She then made arrangements for him to sleep in the temple. The next morning at 4 in the morning, she gave him Shadakshari Upadesham. After returning home, Ayya revealed the news to his mother, who got so upset that she stopped speaking to him for several days. For some time afterward, she tried to keep his devotion from getting out of hand by keeping the puja room key under her pillow at night. Over time, however, she came to appreciate the depth of Ayya's devotion, even defending him from the criticism of his older siblings. Taking flight. Over the course of the next 5 years, Ayya's sadhana started getting more one-pointed and intense. Once, while visiting the ashram, he dreamt of a homam. The homakundam was in the shape of a 6-pointed star. At each point except one sat a rishi. Shakti Rishi was officiating the homam and asked Ayya to sit at the open spot. He sat down and Shakti Rishi asked Ayya to repeat after him and then proceeded to initiate Ayya with the Bijaksharas for Subramanya Mantra. The next morning, when Mataji saw Ayya's face, she said, "Ah, so you have received it." From then onwards, Ayya started chanting the Shadakshari Mantra with the Bijaksharas. Simultaneously, Ayya was quickly becoming known amongst his peers and locals for his mellifluous singing of devotional hymns and bhajans. It was in this time period in 1968 when he met Sri Satya Sai Baba. Baba was much more accessible in those days. Ayya spent time with him and even had the chance to have a meal with him when Baba taught Ayya how one was to eat puri bhaji. Puri is not a Sri Lankan dish, and so Ayya did not know how to eat it. Baba even let Ayya touch his curly hair to see what the texture was like. In 1969, Swami Shivananda appeared in Mataji's meditation and told him with regards to Ayya, "Don't clip his wings, I have plans for him." After that, Mataji made enquiries and soon proposed a match between Shakuntala Amma and Ayya. Mataji spoke to Amma's father's older sister, who then spoke with Amma's father about the potential match. Soon, Amma's maternal uncle, Aruchuna Mama, and his wife came to see Kamalambalamba about the proposal. September 5th, 1970, they were engaged. And on November 19th, 1970, Amma and Ayya got married at the Devayani Sannidhi at the Kataragama Temple, a shrine dedicated to Skanda Kumara. Ayya moved to Zambia in 1971 with Amma to work as an architect and quickly became known by members of the Indian community as someone who led devotional bhajan singing and performed basic home pujas to Subramanya. Since Zambia had no established temples at the time, Ayya's house quickly became a place for South Indians to gather. Among the regular visitors was a man named Balasubramanian, known as Balu, a high-ranking electrical engineer about 20 years Ayya's senior. Balu, a soft-spoken gentleman, impressed Ayya on a number of accounts. He taught Ayya the Lalita Sahasranamam. Along with Balu, Ayya and Amma started attending local satsang run by Sai devotees. Here they would gather, have Nama Sankirtanam and then cook, offer and serve tasty prasadam. Ayya and Amma helped grow that satsangam into a vibrant Satya Sai Baba center for those far and near. Sai Baba birthday celebrations were conducted on a grand scale. Hundreds would come to celebrate Swami's teachings of love all, serve all. Children were taught bhajans and skits to perform. Adults sang and joined in with instrumental accompaniment. As a group, Annadana Seva was a large-scale event, feeding local shelters and the many orphanages in a 100-mile radius. Huge vats of food were being prepared for distribution by teams of volunteers. Feeding people, bhajans and pujas and homas became the cornerstones of life in Zambia. The group became a community of bustling karma yoginis and sadhakas alike, working together in meaningful ways. So what's next is a conversation between Ayya and Corinne on learning Lalita Sahasranamam. This is from Goddess Lives in Upstate New York. Ayya. So one day I was talking to him about Mataji, and I told him that when I first heard this Lalita Sahasranamam being chanted in this ashram, without knowing what it was, my hair stood on end and I had goose pimples all over my body. The sound did something to me. Believe me, I didn't understand a single word, but the way it was being chanted and the sound did something to me. When I asked Mataji if she could teach it to me, she said, "How old are you?" I told her I was 19 or 20, and she said, "You're too young. Finish your studies, get a job, get married, have a few children, and then come back to me and I'll teach you the Lalita Sahasranamam." And Corinne, and she's 80 what? Yeah, she was about 68, and I was thinking, this old one will be gone by the time all this happens. So Mataji looks at me and says, "Rascal, I know what you're thinking." She was very friendly that way. Mataji was an awesome person that way. Anyway, she says, Now that you have the desire, believe me, someday somebody will appear and teach it to you, even if you are in the middle of a deserted island. And I told this guy, now I've left Sri Lanka, I've come all this way. This guy is a reference to Balu here. I've come all this way to Zambia. Now who's going to teach me? Where am I going to learn this? And he says, Haran, I'll teach it to you. And I said, no, not just me. Teach it to all the devotees who come. And that was the way it was. I would never take anything like this just for myself. So on a Shivaratri night, Balu came over for the puja. Since we were going to stay awake all night anyway, we thought this would be a great way to start. And there were people leaning against the walls and going, ah. Ayya sits up at an angle, head back, mimicking a person sleeping with his or her mouth hanging open, fast asleep. But anyway, we were chanting, and that first day I thought, oh my God, why the hell did I even have this desire? Because I couldn't pronounce even one word of this Lalita Sahasranamam. I thought, how am I ever going to get out of this? I wanted to get up and run away. It was like I had about 10 marbles in my mouth and I was trying to chant. Balu sensed it. He said, Haran, it's all right. Everybody goes through this. Don't worry. It will come. You have the desire, keep at it. It will come. We will read again. I'm ready for it, I thought. And I thought, my God, if this guy with all his knowledge and all this experience is willing to go through this, teaching a dud like me 3-4 times, why not? The least I could do is make the effort. Thanks to Balu's kind persistence and with the help of tapes to which Ayya incessantly listened through earplugs, even at his drafting table during his workday, he was able to commit the Sahasranamam to memory within 1 week. After mastering the hymn, Ayya's house regularly filled with even more people wanting to hear or learn it. In some cases, according to Ayya, people were initially curiosity seekers, returned to listen and learn. There were also some who disapproved of a non-Brahmin chanting and teaching Sanskrit. But Ayya noted that many of them eventually came around as well. So that was the Lalita Sahasranamam episode. After this, Nataraja and Shivakami entered the scene. In 1974, Amma, Ayya and Saru went back to Sri Lanka on a vacation. On their way, they stopped in India and went to Madurai and Kanchipuram. Ayya wanted to get a Nataraja and Shivakama Sundari Murti to worship at home. Amma recalls the trip as being eventful in that they found Nataraja in one store and Shivakami in another. Apparently, it was impossible to find them together in one place. They found Shivakami standing atop a sack of rice in a tiny little store, and Amma quickly recalled the Nataraja from a previous store and said they would be a perfect match. She was right. The divine couple graced Amma and Ayya's shrine from then on, receiving countless pujas and enjoying bhajans with all those who were in attendance. Friday nights at 16 Oriole Court were filled with long pujas, rocking bhajans, loads of people and good food, recalls Ayya's daughter Saru. Preparation for Friday evening started on Thursday nights with the vastram and the ornamentation Devi Shivakama Sundari would wear. Though she was only a 9-inch murti, she was always dressed to the nines. Srimati Chitra Mahendran, affectionately known as Deva Auntie, would periodically make fancy cooter-like sari outfits for Shivakami. Ayya would spend nearly 4 hours getting her dressed. He would do japam or sing Lalita Sahasranamam, Tevaram or bhajans as he obsessed over her. While on the other hand, Nataraja would get a token ribbon around his waist and was done with a kunkuma pottu in 5 minutes. Ayya's reasoning? He is sky-clad. The catalyst for Sri Vidya, Guruji walks into Ayya's home. That's the next chapter. Friday pujas consisting of Lalita Sahasranamam and bhajans were continuing at a steady pace. One Friday evening, a gentleman with a white beard walked in and sat for the puja. During Lalita Sahasranamam, this gentleman was also reciting along, seemingly from memory. Not only that, he did the Dashamudras for Devi when it was mentioned in the stotram. Ayya happened to notice this and figured that this person must know Sri Vidya. He wanted to approach him, and the story is beautifully recounted in Corinne's book. Once Ayya started chanting the Sahasranamam, his focus began shifting away from Subramanya and towards the Devi. Ayya wrote to Mataji to tell her that he found someone to teach him the Lalita Sahasranamam as she had predicted many years ago, and expressed his desire to learn Sri Chakra Puja. She approved of his progress but warned him not to launch into Sri Chakra Puja too hastily. This powerful ritual, she felt, was not to be taken lightly. Through no restraint of his own, Ayya did not learn Sri Chakra Puja right away. The pathway leading to that ritual was even more congested than the one leading to the Sahasranamam, since it is primarily the domain of Sri Vidya initiates. Finding people who openly admit to being an upasaka can be difficult at best, and further, caste restrictions for those desiring initiation were typically insurmountable. After several years searching for Sri Vidya upasakas and asking for initiation, Ayya finally found Guruji. A professor of nuclear physics at the time, Guruji had a reputation for both spiritual precocity and unconventional thinking. Intending to ask him for initiation and afraid that he would be turned down once again, Ayya asked Balu to accompany him to Guruji's house for moral support. Guruji answered the door when they arrived and led them directly to his shrine room. He seemed to know, according to Ayya, why they had come. Once in the shrine room, Ayya asked Guruji if he would initiate him into Sri Vidya, and Guruji, without skipping a beat, said, "Of course." Immediately feeling guilty, thinking Guruji must have assumed he was a Brahmin, Ayya blurted out, "But I'm not a Brahmin." Ayya recalls Guruji adamantly responding, "What difference does that make?" Guruji asked his wife to bring him the Panchangam, a book he consulted to determine auspicious times and dates for events such as initiation. On second thought, Guruji said he would just go and ask her. As Ayya was thinking to himself, "Ask her? Who is he talking about?" Ayya went into meditation. During his 2 to 3 minute silence, Ayya remembers thinking, "Oh God, I've come this far and now I am going to be refused by the Devi herself." When Guruji emerged from his meditation, he told Ayya that he would come to his house in 2 weeks to initiate both him and Amma into Sri Vidya. When the time came, Guruji initiated the two of them with the entire gamut of 16 mantras. One of the most enduring effects of Ayya's initiation experience, aside from his long-awaited access to Sri Vidya's secrets, is a product of his Guru Dakshina. Normally, Guru Dakshina involves a tangible gift given to the Guru by the new initiate, an article of clothing, a fruit, a flower, or some other token of appreciation in exchange for the Guru's care and guidance. Instead, Ayya recalls Guruji explicitly instructing him, "I want you to promise me something. Whatever knowledge I give you, whatever experiences you get, whatever happiness or joy you get out of it, share it with everyone." Just 6 months after initiation, Ayya, his wife, and the young daughter emigrated to the United States, commissioned with blessings from Guruji to spread the secret teachings of Sri Vidya. Ayya, conveniently armed with the personality of a maverick, one for whom elitism is particularly irksome, began teaching students from all walks of life. His eventual establishment of an elaborate, ritual-centered temple emerged as part of this natural progression. From this point in Ayya's life, obstacles were less daunting and openings plentiful. Sri Vidya Mantra Upadesam. As Guruji mentioned, in 2 weeks' time, both Amma and Ayya were to receive Upadesham. On October 4th, the night before Upadesham was to take place, Guruji in his dream had an experience with Hladini Shakti in the form of Saubhagya Sudha Lakshmi, that is Devi who is invoked in the Vishesharyam during Sri Chakra Puja. And she gave Guruji Mahasankalpam, which is described later in this book. Devi instructed him to recite this Mahasankalpam before the initiation was given. Guruji faithfully follows her instructions and initiates both Ayya and Amma into the 16 mantras, including the Mahashodashi mantra, during initiation, which lasted the whole night. More than 6 hours went by as Guruji performed Sri Chakra Puja afterwards. After everything was done, Guruji asked Ayya if he experienced anything while the initiation was going on. Ayya said he saw a very fair woman standing next to him holding his wrist while receiving the mantras. Guruji then confirmed that this woman was Saubhagya Sudha Lakshmi. And another time, Ayya opened his palms and they were filled with honey. So this shows that Ayya had the full blessings of Saubhagya Sudha Lakshmi. The next few months went by in a flash. During this time, Ayya learned Sri Chakra Puja and completed a mandala doing Sri Chakra Puja for 90 days. Guruji also taught Ayya Shat Chakra Japam and initiated Deva auntie, Balu and his wife and several others including Saru, who was then aged 5, into Sri Vidya. These individuals became Guruji's senior-most disciples and the nexus of learning over the next several months. From this time came several intense lectures, formally called the Sunshine Lectures. Ayya followed Guruji everywhere and tape recorded every word he uttered. Balu and some others transcribed and printed these lectures. The next chapter. Having been sponsored by Amma's family, the Somaskandas, Ayya and the family were getting ready to immigrate to the United States on May 29, 1980. This new transition came just 9 months after meeting Guruji and getting initiation from him. This was a bittersweet separation from both Guru and his disciple. Just before leaving for the airport, many close friends came to bid farewell to Ayya and family. Guruji and Guruji Amma also came. As Ayya and Amma did their namaskarams to them, Guruji quietly placed his left foot on top of Ayya's head. He kept his foot atop Ayya's head for several minutes while he was talking to others. While Ayya was prostrated, he recalled feeling vibrations going through his body. After Guruji took his foot back, he collapsed and was lying down. When those present hurried to help him up, they asked him, "What happened?" To which he replied, "I gave Ayya all my sadhana. I just need a few moments to recover." This was the start of a new chapter filled with uncertainty and challenges, but there was also a lot of hope for the future. A highly qualified architect by profession, Ayya struggled to break into the field that was steeped in tradition and loyalties. It took a while to find any work at all. He was even denied a job as an apple picker because of his qualifications. To make ends meet, Ayya and Amma worked as caretakers at a small dental school located in the town of Brighton, New York. Here, in exchange for their work, they were given a small apartment above the garage. Working several odd jobs and with Amma going to school, there was hardly any time to see one another. Frequently, Saru was left alone for hours at a time, and to keep her company, Ayya got a cat named Diamond, who became an important member of the household for the next 14 years. Though they resided in the garage apartment for a short time, it was a catalyst for many significant things that happened for Ayya and family in the years that followed. In 1981, Ayya's Amma Kamalambal passed away. Being so close to her and also being the last son, whose responsibility was to do the last rites for his mother, this was an especially heartbreaking time for Ayya. Soon after, they left the dental school and moved back in with the Somaskanda family until Ayya got a job as a night security guard at Xerox Corporation. Here, Ayya used to chant Lalita Sahasranamam at the top of his lungs while doing his rounds. From the Somaskanda residence, Ayya and Amma moved to 254 Cedarwood Terrace, where Nataraja and Devi occupied the attic. In 1982, Kamakshi Devi appeared in Ayya's dream and gave him and Amma Purna Diksha with the corresponding namas Chaitanyananda and Jnanamba. Guruji confirmed this in a letter that arrived shortly thereafter. It is interesting to note that 15 years later, in 1997, when on a trip to Devipuram, Guru Garu gave Ayya an Antar Sannyasa Diksha with a different name, Chidagnanandanatha. Chit Ghananandanatha. Okay. The blessings continued when later that year, during the 7th day of Navaratri, while doing Navavarana Puja, Bala Tripura Sundari appeared from the Visheshargyam and drew a shank on Ayya's right palm. She then asked him to write a book on the Sri Chakra Puja. She also gave him Sri Chaitanya Mahatripura Sundari Mahamantram, also referred to as the Deepa Puja, which can be found in the current Sri Chakra Puja Vidhi book. Ayya mentions his puja in the introduction of the famous Red Book, which he penned the following year, thus fulfilling Devi's request. In the introduction, he says, while completing the worship of the deities that are present in the four corners of the Sri Chakra Chaturayatanam, the Devi should be worshipped in her glorious forms as Lalita Mahatripura Sundari in the Bindu of the Sri Yantra. The mantras included for this purpose in the form of the Kadi Vidya Panchadasakshari were directly revealed to the author on the 7th day during Sharat Navaratri in 1984. These mantras have very deep meanings and are being published here for the first time. The 16th name, Chaitanya Lalita Mahatripura Sundari, denotes the Rishi Mudra. The exquisitely beautiful form of the Sri Devi in the form of Lalita can be experienced as appearing in the Tahara Kasha of the Sadhaka during this puja. When the ritual is performed mentally, the sound issuing forth, originating from the heart lotus and touching the crown of the head in the Brahmarandra, should be concentrated upon, and one should be able to hear one's own primary mantra in the unstruck sound. So this was the introduction to the Red Book. At this house, we are referring to the 254 Cedarwood Terrace house, many long-time sadhakas entered the scene, like Sundara, Jimmy, Gayatri and Shiva, to name a few. Pujas and bhajans picked up from where they had left off in Zambia, and soon the house was bustling again. The Sri Chakra Puja book was on everyone's minds. Without Ayya's knowing, Sundara, Gayatri and Shiva made arrangements to get a Tamil typewriter down from India so that Ayya could start the work. From Cedarwood Terrace, Ayya and Amma purchased a convenience store and moved into the upstairs apartment in Ontario, New York. Now armed with the Tamil typewriter, Ayya starts the Red Book while also minding the store. There was ample work to be done at the store, however. Ayya kept the typewriter on the counter and would continue working on the book between customers. Soon the book was done and a simple color copier was purchased to make 50 copies of each page. Printing and collating was done primarily by Saru, and the binding was outsourced to a local bookbinder at the local co-op in downtown Rochester. 50 copies were printed and bound. Each book had a stamp inside the front cover denoting which copy number it was. Word slowly spread throughout the community that Devi worship was being done. Sri Vishwanathan and Srimati Saroja were amongst a new wave of disciples coming regularly for Friday pujas. This stint at the store was also punctuated by Guruji and Guruji Amma's first visit to the United States in 1985. Throughout the first few years, Guruji kept Ayya going with his typewriter, with his signature typed out letters, which were often signed Lalita. These letters answered any doubts Ayya would have. Guruji would sometimes give puja instructions for particular situations. More than anything, Guruji's letters served as motivation and kept hope alive for Ayya when the circumstances were overwhelming. In the summer of 1987, Ayya, Amma and Saru moved to 33 Park Circle in Henrietta, New York. By that time, the Red Book had taken a life of its own. Devotees were coming from all over the country and Canada. Many miracles and significant events unfolded at Park Circle. Ayya had his first Meru commissioned with the noteworthy Stapati Murugabhushanam. Soon after, he commissioned Prana Shakti with the same Stapati. Around the same time, Ayya finds Avatar Sound Studios in the Yellow Pages to record our first mantra tape, Shiva Panchaksharam. This brings Bill Thomas, the proprietor and sound engineer of the studio, into our midst. Then, on January 19th, 1991, Sri Rajarajeswari Devi, the Shivalingam and the Ganapati arrived from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Guruji does the Prana Pratishtha for her. Notably, Srimati Jnanapurni Madhvanath and Sri Madhvanath also met Ayya the same year and soon became indispensable help in the proliferation of the Sri Chakra Puja book. There are many accounts of their adventures in past Sri Chakra journals. One of those adventures brings Ramesh Kuttikad into our lives, another indispensable fountain of knowledge and insight. Needless to say, the crowd started increasing and the house was bursting at the seams during Friday pujas and festivals. It was literally standing room only. With neighbors complaining about the traffic and the noise, it became clear that Devi needed a bigger space. Simultaneously, Devipuram was getting ready to consecrate the Meru temple, and February 1994, Mahakumbhabhishekam takes place in Devipuram with Ayya, Amma and many disciples from all over the world in attendance for this unprecedented event of cosmic proportions. Then in the year 1996, after a long search of looking at over 35 plots of land, Ayya finally finds and purchases the plot that would become the home for the Rush temple. The plot contained a cow and horse barns, and its auspicious location included a creek flowing from north to south on the one side and the river flowing from south to north on another. While on a visit, Ayya also encountered a large turtle, a deer with her baby, and an eagle circling from above as key signs pointing to the auspiciousness of the location. Sri Matiyoli Saraswati Amma came into our lives and was present for the groundbreaking of the new temple. Many articles on Sri Amma can be found in the Sri Chakra journal. That same year, Ayya quits his job and took on the role of full-time pujari of this new temple. 2 years later, the current temple was consecrated in Ayya's signature style with pomp and flair. Since the consecration, many noteworthy events, dignitaries, artists, authors, Pitadipatis, gurus, sadhakas and devotees have come and graced the temple. Corinne Dempsey's book, The Goddess Lives in Upstate New York, Breaking Convention and Making Home at a North American Hindu Temple, was published in the year 2005. If the temple wasn't known in communities outside of the diaspora, it certainly was after Corinne's book. Fast forward 16 years, Ayya's collection of reference books he had meticulously collected over the years for research and innovation, the Srimati Jnanapurni Madhvanath Memorial Library, is now recognized as a specialty and reference library in the state of New York. The temple itself, the teamwork, the research facility, the sacred grounds, the learning and teaching of Sri Vidya's sacred knowledge make it not only equal but equitable to all is Ayya's goal. In doing so, on April 14, 2021, many devotees came together to make Ayya's grand vision of a granite temple a reality with the groundbreaking ceremony. On the horizon is the next phase of Ayya and Amma's journey with all of us together. Sri Matre Namaha. Thank you. Thank you, Max. Okay, just an update from Anagayan that the ebook is now available on our website, and the physical book is available as a product. It's basically got a zero cost. You just buy it and it helps us register your interest in that book. So you can find both on our temple bookstore. Okay. Okay. So now that you've heard the story, we will have a quiz. No, I'm just kidding. We will play a video which is about how the Devi came to 33 Park Circle.